Have you ever felt a woman slipping away, not with a loud fight, but with a quiet distance that you can't fully explain? When a woman is preparing to end her love for you, she doesn't always say it directly. Her actions start speaking louder than her words. Today, we're breaking down the subtle signs and psychological shifts that reveal she's emotionally checking out long before she physically leaves. When a woman begins to emotionally withdraw, it rarely happens overnight. Emotional detachment is a gradual, subtle, and deeply psychological process. It often starts long before she expresses any dissatisfaction verbally. Women typically invest emotionally with sincerity and consistency. So when that emotional energy starts slowing down, it's not random. It's a sign she is protecting her heart, reassessing her connection, and quietly distancing herself to avoid further hurt. Emotional withdrawal is one of the earliest and most powerful indicators that she is preparing herself to let go. In the beginning, she might still be physically present, but you'll notice her emotional presence fading. She stops sharing the details of her day, her dreams, her fears, or the things that normally excite her. She becomes quieter, more guarded, and less expressive. Conversations that used to feel warm and filled with connection start becoming dry, surface level, or transactional. Instead of talking to you, she starts talking around you. It's not because she suddenly doesn't have anything to say, it's because she no longer feels emotionally safe enough to share it with you. Women withdraw emotionally when they feel unheard, unvalued, or emotionally drained. When her emotional needs have been neglected for too long, she begins to conserve what's left of her energy. She might stop seeking comfort from you because she has learned that she won't receive the response she needs. This doesn't come from a place of anger at first. It comes from a place of emotional exhaustion. She simply lacks the strength to keep pouring into a connection that doesn't pour back into her. Over time, she teaches herself to stop relying on you emotionally because the disappointment has become predictable. Another clear sign of emotional withdrawal is reduced vulnerability. A woman who once opened up easily may now hesitate or resist sharing anything personal. Vulnerability requires trust, and when trust begins to fade, so does her willingness to expose the softer parts of herself. You might notice she becomes more private, more self-contained, and more emotionally self-reliant. She no longer lets you see her at her weakest moments. She internalizes her struggles instead of turning to you for support. This emotional shift is not rebellion, it is self-protection. Affection also begins to change. Emotional disconnection affects the tone of her interactions. She becomes less affectionate, less expressive, and less responsive to intimacy. The warmth in her voice or the light in her eyes may fade. Emotional connection fuels physical closeness for most women, so when the emotional bond weakens, physical closeness follows. She may still perform basic couple-related behaviors out of habit, but the emotional meaning behind them is missing. You can sense the distance even if her actions seem normal on the surface. Another layer of emotional withdrawal is the loss of enthusiasm for the future. Her excitement for shared plans starts fading. She becomes non-committal or indifferent about future goals that once mattered to both of you. It's not that she no longer cares about her own future. She just no longer sees the relationship as a stable part of it. Her emotional investment shrinks to the present moment because she no longer has the certainty or desire to plan long-term with you. Finally, her emotional withdrawal becomes evident in her reactions. She stops fighting for the relationship. She stops expressing frustration, disappointment, or jealousy. These emotions only show up when someone still cares. When she grows silent, neutral, or indifferent, it's a sign her heart has started detaching. Emotional numbness is often the final stage of withdrawal. Once she reaches that point, she has already begun the internal process of preparing to leave. When a woman begins losing emotional connection or preparing to detach from a relationship, one of the clearest indicators is a shift in her communication. Communication isn't just about words, it's about tone, energy, timing, emotional availability, and the willingness to stay connected. So when her communication patterns begin to change, it is often a reflection of deeper emotional shifts happening inside her. These changes are rarely dramatic at first. They usually appear in small, subtle ways that gradually grow more obvious over time. In the early stages, you may notice she becomes less responsive. Messages that she once replied to instantly now sit unread for hours. Calls that she used to answer with enthusiasm are now ignored or returned later with short, emotionless responses. It doesn't mean she is suddenly busier than before. It means the urgency she once felt to stay connected has faded. When communication slows down, it signals that her emotional investment is no longer driving her engagement. Another noticeable change is the tone of her communication. Where she once sounded warm, expressive, and engaged, she now sounds flat or neutral. Conversations feel more like tasks than moments of connection. Her words may become shorter and less detailed. Instead of sharing stories, she gives summaries. Instead of expressing emotions, she gives facts. This shift happens because her emotional world is no longer aligned with the relationship. Communication reflects feelings, so when the feelings change, the communication naturally follows. A deeper layer of communication change shows up in how she participates in conversations. She stops initiating discussions, stops asking questions, and stops showing curiosity about your life. When a woman is connected emotionally, she cares about your thoughts and experiences. She participates actively and shows genuine interest. But when she begins detaching, she becomes less involved. Conversations feel one-sided or forced because she is no longer putting in the same effort. It's not that she is being cold on purpose. Emotionally, she has checked out. You may also notice she avoids deeper or meaningful conversations. If you try to talk about feelings, the relationship, or any long-term matters, she either changes the subject or gives vague responses. She might say things like, "I don't want to talk about this right now," or "It's fine, nothing's wrong," even when something clearly is. This avoidance isn't because she doesn't have anything to say, it's because she doesn't have the emotional energy or desire to invest in repairing the connection anymore. Emotional detachment often leads to communication withdrawal because she is no longer fighting for understanding or closeness. Sarcasm, irritability, or short replies may also begin to appear. This doesn't always manifest as anger. It can simply show up as reduced patience or lowered tolerance. Things that never bothered her before suddenly become triggers. Her responses may feel colder or more dismissive. This isn't because she wants to be difficult. It's because the emotional connection that once softened her tone has weakened. Her communication becomes reflective of the emotional distance she feels inside. Another key indicator is the absence of emotional updates. Women naturally communicate through sharing, whether it's their day, their thoughts, or their inner world. When she stops opening up, stops expressing her emotions, or stops involving you in her life, it signals that she no longer sees you as her emotional home. She may communicate with others, but with you, the emotional channel is closing. This is one of the most powerful signs that her detachment is real. Finally, communication changes often become most apparent when conflict arises. A woman who still cares wants to talk, resolve, clarify, and reconnect. But when she begins preparing to leave emotionally, she no longer argues, complains, or tries to fix anything. Silence replaces confrontation, and indifference replaces emotional expression. When communication becomes passive, distant, or minimal, it signals that she has started withdrawing her heart from the relationship. One of the clearest signs that a woman is preparing to emotionally detach from a relationship is the gradual reduction of her effort. In healthy relationships, effort is visible in the way she nurtures the bond, invests time, and actively works to maintain closeness. When she begins withdrawing, this effort diminishes. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a slow, almost imperceptible process that can leave her partner feeling confused, frustrated, or even blindsided. Understanding this shift requires paying attention not just to actions, but to the emotional intention behind them. Initially, the reduction of effort may appear in small ways. She may stop initiating plans, stop suggesting activities, or stop putting thought into shared moments. Where she once tried to create connection, her contributions now feel routine or mechanical. She might attend social gatherings or family events, but the spark, the sense of enjoyment and engagement, is missing. This doesn't mean she is outwardly hostile or dismissive. She simply no longer feels motivated to invest energy in maintaining the relationship. Another sign is the decline in problem solving. In relationships, challenges are inevitable. A woman who is emotionally invested will often try to address conflicts, communicate her feelings, and work toward solutions. However, when her effort declines, she stops engaging in these efforts. She may avoid difficult conversations, delay addressing issues, or respond with indifference. Conflict that used to be met with active dialogue is now met with passivity or withdrawal. This is a subtle but important signal that she is mentally preparing to detach from the relationship. Acts of thoughtfulness and care also tend to decrease. In emotionally connected relationships, gestures of love and care, whether it's remembering small details, planning surprises, or offering support during stressful times, occur naturally. When she begins to disengage, these acts of care become rare or disappear altogether. Gifts, compliments, or affectionate notes may stop. Even simple gestures like asking about your day or showing concern for your well-being may be reduced. These changes reflect the decline in emotional energy she is willing to invest. Her consistency also begins to shift. Emotional investment often shows in reliability. She keeps promises, follows through on plans, and maintains routines that reinforce trust. When effort decreases, reliability often suffers. She may cancel plans more frequently, arrive late, or neglect responsibilities that impact the relationship. This inconsistency is rarely about negligence. It is about a shift in priorities and energy allocation. Her attention is gradually moving away from the relationship. Another aspect of reduced effort is disengagement from intimacy and emotional closeness. She may still be physically present, but the warmth, curiosity, and engagement she once brought to the relationship fade. Conversations may become superficial, and moments of shared vulnerability are rare. Emotional distance naturally affects physical closeness, and she may avoid intimate moments that require emotional availability. This is not about physical attraction, but about the diminishing desire to connect emotionally. You may also notice that she stops putting effort into self-improvement for the relationship. Personal growth, communication skills, and mutual goals often matter in healthy partnerships. When effort diminishes, she may show less interest in these areas. Her focus shifts toward her own individual life and priorities, rather than nurturing the shared life you once built. This subtle shift in attention indicates that she is mentally and emotionally redirecting her energy. Finally, her reduced effort manifests in emotional neutrality. When effort declines, there is no fight, no urgency, and no active engagement in preserving the bond. She may appear calm and composed, but underneath lies a quiet detachment. Her absence of action is as meaningful as overt conflict. This lack of effort signals that she is preparing herself to step back and create emotional space between herself and the relationship. A woman who is emotionally distancing herself from a relationship often shows it through increased irritation and criticism. This behavior is rarely about sudden anger or a desire to hurt. It is a reflection of her internal emotional state. When a woman begins to check out emotionally, small issues that were once overlooked start to feel magnified. Her patience decreases, and her tolerance for minor annoyances diminishes. This shift in behavior is subtle at first, but over time it becomes a consistent pattern that signals her growing detachment. Initially, the irritability may appear in the form of impatience over trivial matters. Things that never used to bother her, like leaving dishes in the sink, being late for plans, or forgetting small commitments, suddenly feel irritating. She may respond with sharp words, sighs, or visible frustration. The intensity of her reactions often surprises partners because these issues were previously inconsequential. This change is not about the specific actions themselves, it is about the emotional space she is creating between herself and the relationship. Criticism often accompanies this irritability. Women who are emotionally disengaging may start pointing out flaws, habits, or mistakes more frequently. The tone of these remarks is often sharper, less tolerant, and more persistent. Criticism may target both small and large aspects of daily life, from personal habits to relationship dynamics. While feedback in a healthy relationship is constructive, in this context, criticism tends to feel judgmental, negative, or dismissive. It reflects her emotional withdrawal and growing dissatisfaction, signaling that she is no longer fully invested in maintaining harmony. Another subtle manifestation is passive-aggressive behavior. She may make indirect remarks, sarcastic comments, or backhanded statements that communicate frustration without explicit confrontation. This form of communication is often a coping mechanism. It allows her to express discontent while maintaining a degree of emotional distance. Passive aggressiveness often replaces open dialogue because she no longer sees the value in investing energy into constructive conversation or emotional repair. Emotional sensitivity also shifts during this period. A woman preparing to leave may react more strongly to perceived slights or misunderstandings. Things that once seemed harmless may now trigger anger or resentment. This heightened sensitivity is not arbitrary. It is a reflection of her internal conflict and growing disconnection. She may feel frustrated by the effort required to maintain emotional engagement, and this frustration manifests outwardly in the form of criticism and irritation. Another aspect to notice is her decreased ability to celebrate or support your achievements. Where she once shared your excitement or offered encouragement, she may now respond with indifference or even subtle negativity. Achievements that previously brought joy to the relationship may now become points of tension or comparison. This shift reflects her emotional withdrawal as she is no longer fully present in the partnership. Increased criticism may also extend to the relationship itself. She may repeatedly point out issues, blame, or highlight flaws in the partnership without offering solutions. These repeated negative observations are often signs of emotional exhaustion rather than a desire to end things abruptly. They serve as a subconscious signal that she is mentally and emotionally preparing to step away, testing the waters, and distancing herself. Finally, her overall demeanor begins to reflect tension and detachment. The warmth, patience, and understanding that once characterized her interactions may be replaced by frustration, impatience, or even indifference. The combination of irritation and criticism creates an emotional atmosphere that subtly pushes both partners apart. It is rarely about confrontation alone. It is about signaling that the emotional connection she once valued is weakening and that she is beginning the process of separation. A significant sign that a woman is preparing to emotionally detach from a relationship is a noticeable shift toward independence. This behavior is not about sudden rebellion or self-centeredness. It is a natural response to feeling disconnected or unfulfilled within the partnership. As her emotional investment decreases, she begins creating mental and physical space for herself, prioritizing her own needs, desires, and well-being over the shared life she once fully embraced. This shift is subtle at first, but gradually becomes more pronounced, reflecting an internal process of detachment and self-preservation. Initially, the shift toward independence may show up in daily routines. She starts making decisions on her own without consulting you, even about matters that were previously discussed jointly. Where once she sought your input or valued your opinion, she now proceeds based on her own preferences. This can include choices about social activities, hobbies, or even small personal decisions. These changes are often rationalized as practicality or efficiency, but emotionally, they indicate a growing separation in priorities. Time management also reflects this shift. She may spend more hours on personal interests, friendships, or professional goals, gradually reducing the time allocated to shared activities or quality moments together. Where she once invested energy in maintaining closeness, she now seeks solitude or independent experiences. This behavior is not necessarily negative. It often represents her attempt to regain a sense of control over her life and emotions. However, in the context of relationship detachment, it signals that her focus is moving away from the partnership. Another indicator is the reduced reliance on you for emotional support. Previously, she may have shared her concerns, fears, or challenges openly. As she shifts toward independence, she begins handling her struggles alone. She may confide in friends, family, or mentors instead of turning to you, or she may internalize her feelings entirely. This reduction in emotional dependence reflects a conscious or subconscious preparation to exist without the emotional safety net of the relationship. A woman moving toward independence may also redefine her social interactions. She seeks connections and experiences outside the relationship that bring her fulfillment, satisfaction, or excitement. While social engagement is healthy in any partnership, the difference lies in intention and frequency. She increasingly prioritizes activities where you are absent, demonstrating that her emotional and social energy is being directed elsewhere. This independence is often paired with a sense of self-discovery and personal growth. Decision-making about long-term plans becomes another indicator. She may express goals or desires that no longer align with the shared vision of the relationship. Career moves, relocation, lifestyle changes, or personal projects may take precedence over discussions about the future together. This divergence does not always come in the form of confrontation or rebellion. It is a quiet reorientation of her life toward individual priorities. The shift toward independence also affects her communication style. She may express opinions more assertively or set firmer boundaries, emphasizing what she wants without seeking approval. While healthy boundaries are essential in any relationship, this particular behavior reflects her emotional disengagement and desire to reclaim autonomy over decisions that once might have been negotiated together. Another subtle sign is emotional self-sufficiency. She becomes less reactive to relationship stress, no longer seeking reassurance, validation, or comfort from you as she once did. This self-sufficiency is often accompanied by a calm or neutral demeanor during situations that might have previously caused emotional tension. It is a protective mechanism, allowing her to maintain stability while gradually distancing herself from the dependency and emotional intertwining that once characterized the partnership. Overall, this shift toward independence is a clear psychological signal. It demonstrates a reallocation of her mental, emotional, and physical resources away from the relationship. As she builds personal space, strengthens self-reliance, and seeks fulfillment outside the partnership, the emotional gap between the two of you widens, preparing her mind and heart for the possibility of leaving. One of the most definitive indicators that a woman is preparing to end her love and emotionally detach is the appearance of clear, unmistakable signs of letting go. Unlike earlier stages, which involve subtle shifts in behavior or energy, these signs are more direct, observable, and consistent. They reflect an internal decision-making process where she has begun accepting the possibility of separation and is mentally preparing herself to move on. These signs are not always loud or confrontational. In fact, they often manifest as quiet detachment, emotional neutrality, and a lack of engagement. The first and most obvious sign is indifference. When a woman starts letting go, she no longer reacts strongly to events, arguments, or changes in the relationship. Where she once felt excitement, disappointment, jealousy, or even anger, she now exhibits a calm neutrality. Emotional responses that were previously indicators of care have faded. Indifference is one of the most powerful signals of detachment because it shows that her emotional investment has diminished. When she no longer experiences emotional highs or lows in response to relationship dynamics, it reflects a deliberate distancing of her heart. Another major sign is the loss of initiative. A woman who is still invested actively participates in nurturing the relationship. She plans dates, initiates communication, and seeks moments of connection. When she is letting go, this initiative disappears. She stops reaching out, stops suggesting activities, and stops attempting to maintain closeness. Conversations may only happen when absolutely necessary, and even then, her responses are minimal, neutral, and lacking warmth. The absence of initiative signals that she no longer sees the relationship as a priority. Emotional withdrawal becomes more pronounced. She may stop sharing personal thoughts, feelings, or daily experiences. Vulnerability, which once defined the emotional bond, diminishes. She may still spend time with you physically, but her presence lacks emotional depth. This withdrawal is deliberate, not accidental, as she creates emotional space to protect herself from further hurt and to prepare for detachment. Her inner world is increasingly separate from the shared life, and she no longer relies on the relationship for emotional sustenance. Another critical indicator is a change in priorities. She begins prioritizing her own life, needs, and aspirations over the shared aspects of the relationship. Career goals, personal growth, hobbies, and friendships take precedence. Decisions that affect both partners are increasingly made independently, without consultation or concern for mutual impact. This shift reflects her mindset of self-preservation and a conscious preparation to live without the relationship as a central part of her identity. Communication patterns also reveal her detachment. She may respond minimally, avoid deep conversations, or give short factual replies instead of engaging emotionally. Attempts to discuss the future, address issues, or resolve conflicts are met with disengagement or avoidance. She may stop expressing care, concern, or affection altogether. These changes are consistent with her emotional state. She is no longer invested in keeping the connection alive. A subtle yet significant sign is the lack of emotional reactions to milestones or shared experiences. Anniversaries, achievements, celebrations, or meaningful events may pass without enthusiasm or engagement. The emotional weight that once gave these moments significance has disappeared, replaced by neutrality or even disinterest. This shift demonstrates that she is mentally detaching herself from the relational narrative that previously held value. Physical and emotional space also increases. She may spend more time away, reduce intimacy, and show a preference for solitude or activities without you. This distance is both literal and symbolic, reinforcing the emotional separation she is cultivating. By creating physical and mental space, she reinforces the boundaries necessary to prepare herself for leaving. Finally, her actions reflect consistency with detachment. Emotional neutrality, lack of initiative, withdrawal, and independence are not occasional, they are persistent. This pattern indicates that her internal process of letting go is deliberate, ongoing, and aligned with her eventual decision to end the relationship.